What happened to Nagisa? I beg your pardon? Certainly you must know whom I'm referring to. Is that so? You aren't particularly skilled at remembering names. I suppose that is fair, at least in this place. After all, a palace and a royal family. They do require a few more helping hands than most people are accustomed to. I can't expect you to remember every single name of every single person who works here. However, I would expect you to know the name of the person whom you seem to be replacing. Do you truly have no memory of who he is? Or do I need to refresh your memory? That's more like it. Now, if you would be so kind, I would greatly appreciate it if you could answer my first question. Forgetfulness seems to be a habit of yours. We'll have to work on that. I asked you what happened to him. He is never late to join me for dinner. Has he taken ill? He said he was rather tied up with work. That doesn't sound quite like him. Although, I suppose most things have been rather unusual lately. With my father and mother away in another kingdom doing business, things have been a lot different around here. I have to deal with most of their work by myself, or I have to trouble Nagisa for assistance. I hate to burden him with all of this, of course, but truth be told, I'm afraid I'm just not all that good at this. Really? You're surprised by that? And why is that? I see. I'm afraid that's a common misconception. You see, though I have been taught how to rule a kingdom, practicing and actually doing something, especially something like this, those are two very different things. And when it comes to something like this, something as intimidating as running a kingdom all by yourself, there's very little preparation that anyone can give you to actually help, short of letting you do it for them while they watch, but my parents never had time for that. They could never afford to give me the chance to make true mistakes. Not when lives are on the line. Not when there's so much uncertainty about our kingdom's future. I suppose Nagisa is just trying to help, but I do worry about him. In fact, I worry about him every single day. I can't fall asleep at night thinking about all the little messes I've made that he'll have to clean up now, all the mistakes I'll make tomorrow, all the things he'll have to fix in my absence. For after all, he's either too afraid or far too kind to mention my shortcomings to me. But I notice when he's changed things, just as I noticed that he changed something tonight. He sent you in his place while he attends to work. As you can assume, he's never done that before. That isn't to say that this change is entirely unwelcome. You do seem to be rather good company, forgetful and foolish as you are, that is. However, I'm certain that'll amuse me. Tell me, what's your name? Did you perhaps not hear me through your helmet? What is your name? I didn't catch it earlier. You didn't give it? Well, that isn't very polite of you. When you meet someone new, even your employer, you should offer your name. After all, you know mine, don't you? I thought so. So tell me, what is your name? Well, that's certainly a unique name. I must say, I don't believe I've ever heard of a name like that before. I've never met anyone with a name even similar to that. Oh, very interesting. Oh, is that so? It's a rather common name. Well, I suppose that just goes to show that I don't have many opportunities to socialize these days. And I must warn you, that has certainly led to some bad behavior on my part. Oh, really? You've heard about that? Tell me then, what exactly have you heard about me? I'm curious. You don't know if you should say? And why is that? What, are you scared of me? A little? Oh, please. You have absolutely no reason to be afraid of telling me what you've heard. After all, I might have some bad habits, but shooting the messenger isn't exactly one of them. I assure you, you will receive no punishment or negative consequences for what you tell me. I simply want to know what others have to say about me. However, if you tell me something that you think, well, you'd better hope the rest of the evening puts me in a good mood. Oh, really? You've heard that I'm a bit of a sadist. Well, isn't that interesting? Is it true? I'd like for you to tell me what you think. You heard me, didn't you? I want to know whether or not you think it's true. I see. Based on how many people have said it, you believe that it must be true. Well, I prefer to think of myself as easily bored, and then easily amused by others' pain. I suppose that does make me a bit of a sadist, but what can I say? A lot of people tend to cross me. A lot of people rather similar to you. How so, you ask? Foolish, forgetful, rather awful at their jobs, honestly. Just like you. What makes you so awful at your job? Well, for starters, you're an amateur, not a professional. And you don't seem to make any effort to hide that. Oh, come on. There's no need to look so offended. You did ask, after all. I'm simply giving you my honest answer. Think of it as feedback, ideas for you to improve. Would you care to hear more? You aren't certain you wish to hear more. Well, how very unfortunate for you that I'm the one who calls the shots around here. Let's see. Where was I? You're an amateur. You seem to have very little regard for what you're doing. You don't seem totally devoted to it. You don't seem like you even want to do this. It's almost as if you wanted me to notice. Notice what? Perhaps that this wine, it's supposed to be rather dry. It certainly isn't supposed to be this sweet. Oh, really? Perhaps the other servants made a mistake when they fetched it for me? Well, I suppose, after all, almost anything is possible. Just as it's possible that on your way here, you noticed the foxglove bushes that were blooming in the garden. Foxglove produces a rather sweet-tasting poison. That's what makes it so dangerous. Yet it is also the downfall of anyone who tries to use its poison against a member of the royal family. It can trick the untrained senses. It can fool a child into thinking it's a sweet treat. It can fool an adult into believing that it's merely sugar in their tea. It can fool anyone except for me. And do you know why that is? I didn't think so. After all, you've made it quite clear that you have no idea what you're doing. If you did, you might have done a little research. You might have learned that I happen to ingest small amounts of poison every single day. Non-lethal amounts, of course. They made me sick at first, but it was well worth it in the end. I have learned to taste every single poison that I can, and the ones that are flavorless, odorless, like iocane powder. Even those would only do so much damage, but not nearly enough for what you intended to do to me. Oh? Playing coy, are you? You don't know what I'm implying? I'm not implying anything. I am saying that you are no knight. You're an assassin, here to kill me, aren't you? What gave you away in the first place? I'll be honest. It took a while for me to realize it. At first, I truly did think that you were just another fool, desperate to get some coin from the king's pockets. I thought that Nagisa was in fact working. After all, he does it rather often. Yet he never sends anyone to take his place in joining me for dinner. That made me rather suspicious. However, I brushed it aside. Perhaps there was an emergency. Things like that happen all the time. But then you told me your name. You really ought to have thought this through a bit more. After all, I told you I had never heard any name that sounded similar to yours. Yet you claimed it was incredibly common. I have heard that name. The neighboring kingdom often produces people with that exact name. So it is common, just not here. And of course, after that, all of the pieces slowly fell into place. So let's drop the ruse, shall we? Talk to each other, person to person, prince to assassin. What am I going to do to you? Well, that depends. What did you do to Nagisa? You didn't hurt him. I will be the judge of that when you tell me where he is. He's tied up in his room. I see. Get up, walk to the door, and open it for me, like a good knight is supposed to do. Do it now, or I will call for the guards. And I am absolutely certain that you don't want them to find you here, do you? What's stopping you from killing me right here and now? Well, nothing, I suppose. Except, now you're aware of how dangerous I am. You're aware of how difficult it is to kill someone like me. I saw you glancing at the steak knife on the table. You don't know what I'm willing to do to you, especially after all the rumors you heard about me. You don't know how well that armor will protect you from something like me. So open the door and escort me to Nagisa's room. And you had better pray to every god, goddess, saint, and spirit that has ever existed. Why? Because if you hurt him, if he has been harmed since the last time I spoke with him, there will be no one in your kingdom or mine who will be able to save you from me.